Beyond the Gates spoilers, Vernon believed he was acting out of love. In his mind, every decision he made was guided by a single instinct that had defined his marriage for decades: protect Anita at all costs. He had watched the woman he loved endure more pain than most people could imagine, her body weakened by chemotherapy, her spirit forced into a daily battle between hope and exhaustion. To Vernon, the idea of adding another emotional burden onto her already fragile strength felt unbearable. He convinced himself that silence was not betrayal, that withholding the truth was not a lie, that a temporary shield, a pause button pressed on reality until she was strong enough to face it. In that fragile space between fear and devotion, he told himself that he was doing the right thing, even as a quiet voice inside him warned that love built on concealment often collapses under its own weight. The call from Martin shattered any illusion that this moment could be postponed indefinitely. The medical facts were clear, precise, and devastating in their contrast. Nicole's genetic test had returned negative, a result that should have been a source of relief, even celebration, after weeks of uncertainty. Donnie's test, however, told a different story entirely. Positive. A single word heavy enough to reshape futures, rewrite plans, and awaken fears that had been carefully buried for years. Vernon absorbed the information in silence, feeling the weight of it settle into his chest like a stone. In that moment, he understood that this was not merely medical data. It was a turning point that would alter the emotional landscape of his entire family. He knew Anita deserved to know, but he also knew the timing could not have been worse. She was in the middle of chemotherapy, her body already fighting for survival, her mind oscillating between resilience and vulnerability. To tell her now felt cruel, almost reckless. So Vernon chose omission. When Anita asked whether there had been any news, he told her he had heard nothing. The lie slipped out more easily than he expected, wrapped in a calm tone meant to reassure, meant to protect. He told himself it was temporary, that he would explain everything once she finished treatment, once she was stronger, once the storm inside her body had quieted. He told himself that love sometimes required difficult choices, that husbands were meant to shoulder burdens so their wives would not have to. But even as he maintained the facade of normalcy, the truth lingered between them, invisible yet heavy, altering the air in the room. Every moment of tenderness, every shared silence was now layered with something unspoken, something unresolved. What Vernon failed to understand was that Anita had never wanted protection in the form he was offering. Strength, for her, had never meant ignorance. She had built her life on facing reality head-on, on standing firm even when the truth was painful. Cancer had not changed that core of who she was. If anything, it had reinforced it. She did not see herself as fragile, even when her body betrayed her. She saw herself as a mother first, a woman whose greatest responsibility was to her daughters, not only to shield them but to stand beside them when fear demanded courage. In choosing silence, Vernon unknowingly stripped her of that role, deciding on her behalf what she could and could not handle. The moment Anita returned home after chemotherapy, the fragile balance Vernon had constructed collapsed. The truth surfaced, not gently, not gradually, but with the sharpness of betrayal. She learned that Vernon had known all along, that he had carried both the relief of Nicole's negative result and the terror of Donnie's positive one without her. The realization struck deeper than the medical news itself. It was not merely that information had been withheld. It was that her autonomy had been quietly taken away. In that instant, Anita did not see a husband trying to protect her. She saw a man who had decided she was too weak to face her own family's reality, a man who had mistaken control for care. Her reaction was not rooted in anger alone, but in a profound sense of disappointment. She had survived cancer by confronting it, by refusing to look away from the truth of her condition. And now she was being told through Vernon's actions, rather than his words, that she could not be trusted to face the truth about her own daughters. The irony was painful. She had endured the physical agony of treatment, the emotional toll of uncertainty, only to discover that the person closest to her had chosen to shield her from the very thing she needed most: honesty. Anita did not want to be coddled. She did not want to be spared discomfort at the cost of dignity. That was never who she was, and Vernon, of all people, should have known that. Her strength had always come from participation, from being present in every difficult chapter of her family's life. She wanted to sit with her daughters in their fear, to share in their uncertainty, to offer them not false reassurance, but solidarity. Donnie's positive result was not something she needed protection from. It was something she needed to face alongside her child, as a mother, as a pillar, as someone who understood that pain divided is pain made bearable. For Vernon, the consequences of his choice began to unfold in ways he had not anticipated. The lie he believed would preserve peace instead fractured trust. Anita's disappointment was quiet but devastating, more painful than anger could ever be. She questioned not his love, but his understanding of her, and that question lingered like an unspoken accusation. How could a man who claimed to know her so well fail to see that honesty was her lifeline, not her weakness? How could he believe that shielding her from the truth would make her stronger, when all it did was isolate her at the very moment she needed connection? The revelation also forced Vernon to confront a difficult truth about himself. His decision had not been purely selfless. Beneath the desire to protect Anita lay his own fear of watching her suffer, fear of being powerless in the face of another threat to his family, fear of confronting a reality he could not fix. By choosing silence, he had bought himself time, a temporary escape from the pain of witnessing her reaction. In doing so, he had prioritized his discomfort over her right to know, a realization that cut deeply once the truth emerged. Anita's response was not dramatic, but it was resolute. She made it clear, through her demeanor and her refusal to accept excuses, that she would not be treated as fragile or incapable. She wanted to be present for Nicole's relief and for Donnie's fear, to navigate both outcomes with clarity and purpose. Cancer had already taught her that life did not wait for perfect timing. That truth did not become easier simply because one delayed it. Vernon's attempt to control the moment had only deepened the wound. In the aftermath, the space between them became charged with unresolved emotion. Love remained, but it was now entangled with doubt and hurt. Vernon was forced to reckon with the reality that protection without consent can become a form of betrayal, that love does not grant the right to decide another person's limits. Anita, meanwhile, faced the dual burden of her own illness and her daughter's diagnosis, compounded by the knowledge that the man she trusted most had chosen secrecy over partnership. The situation left the family standing at a crossroads. Donnie's positive result loomed over everything, a reminder that the future was uncertain and potentially frightening. Nicole's negative result brought relief, but even that was tinged with guilt and confusion. And at the center of it all stood Anita, determined to reclaim her role not as someone to be protected, but as someone who stands unflinching in the face of truth. Vernon's silence, meant to shield her from pain, had instead revealed the deepest fault line in their marriage. Not a lack of love, but a misunderstanding of what love truly requires. In the world they inhabited, where appearances often masked deeper fractures, this moment marked a quiet but profound shift. Trust, once taken for granted, now needed to be rebuilt. Decisions would no longer be made unilaterally in the name of protection. Anita's strength demanded acknowledgement, not concealment, and Vernon, faced with the consequences of his choice, would have to decide whether he was capable of loving her not as someone to be shielded from pain, but as a partner strong enough to face it alongside him, no matter how devastating the truth might be. Dr. Michele Dupree has built her entire professional life on understanding the human mind. She is widely respected as a psychiatrist whose reputation rests on her ability to dissect emotional pain, recognize behavioral patterns, and guide others through psychological crises with clarity and composure. For years, she has believed that knowledge, insight, and emotional intelligence could solve almost anything, including the fractures within her own family. But cancer is not a condition that yields to logic, nor does it respect expertise or preparation. It arrives uninvited, indifferent to professional titles and emotional training, and its impact extends far beyond the body of the patient, infiltrating the mental and emotional stability of everyone connected to them. The Dupree family is learning this in the most brutal way possible. As Anita undergoes chemotherapy, the physical toll is obvious, but the psychological damage ripples outward in quieter, more insidious forms. Fear settles into the household like a permanent presence, unspoken yet constantly felt. Every interaction is now shadowed by uncertainty, every moment of relief followed by the dread of what might come next. For Nicole, witnessing her parents endure this ordeal has become an emotional weight she can no longer compartmentalize. She has spent her career helping others process trauma, yet when it unfolds inside her own home, her professional distance collapses under the intimacy of personal loss. By Tuesday, the emotional strain finally begins to overwhelm her. Watching her parents struggle, particularly seeing her mother weakened by treatment and her father attempting to control chaos through secrecy, leaves Nicole emotionally unmoored. The family she once perceived as resilient now feels fragile, exposed to forces none of them can manage. At the same time, the truth about Donnie's BRCA-positive result introduces a new layer of fear, one that cuts deeply into Nicole's sense of responsibility as both a sister and a physician. Knowing that her sibling now faces a heightened risk of cancer is not just a medical concern. It is a psychological reckoning that forces Nicole to confront mortality in a way she has always been able to intellectualize, but never truly internalize. What makes Nicole's breakdown particularly devastating is that it does not come from a single event, but from accumulation. The past year has already pushed her to emotional extremes. Professional pressures, personal sacrifices, and the relentless demand to be the stable one in every room have eroded her resilience. She has been the listener, the advisor, the emotional anchor for others, often at the expense of her own well-being. In her family, she is expected to be strong, rational, and composed, the one who understands what is happening and knows how to respond. But that expectation leaves little room for vulnerability and even less for collapse. As she absorbs the reality of Donnie's condition, Nicole is forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Knowledge does not protect against fear. In fact, it can intensify it. She understands exactly what a BRCA-positive result means, not just statistically, but emotionally. She knows the surveillance, the preventative decisions, the constant awareness that one's body may eventually betray them. Carrying that knowledge, while also watching her mother battle cancer, creates a psychological feedback loop that amplifies her anxiety rather than easing it. The professional detachment she once relied on dissolves, replaced by a profound sense of helplessness. Weekly previews suggest that the Dupree family will rally around one of their own as Nicole spirals. On the surface, this unity may appear to be centered on Donnie, whose diagnosis demands immediate emotional and practical support. The family's instinct is to close ranks, to protect the member whose vulnerability is most visible. Yet beneath that collective response lies another crisis, quieter but no less urgent. Nicole's emotional unraveling does not align with the image she has always projected, making it easier for others to overlook. Her distress is subtle, manifesting not through dramatic displays, but through exhaustion, withdrawal, and moments of uncharacteristic fragility. This is what makes her struggle particularly dangerous. Nicole is not someone who asks for help easily. She has spent her life being the one others lean on, the one who offers perspective and reassurance. Admitting that she is overwhelmed feels like a failure, both professionally and personally. As a psychiatrist, she is acutely aware of the signs of burnout and emotional collapse, yet recognizing them in herself only deepens her sense of shame. She knows better, and that knowledge becomes another burden rather than a source of clarity. The family's support, while well-intentioned, risks becoming misdirected if no one pauses to truly see Nicole's pain. In focusing solely on Donnie's diagnosis and Anita's illness, they may miss the fact that Nicole is quietly unraveling under the combined weight of grief, fear, and unprocessed trauma. Her struggle is not rooted in weakness, but in prolonged emotional suppression. She has been holding everything together for so long that when the cracks finally appear, they threaten to shatter her entirely. What makes this moment so significant is that it challenges the family's perception of strength. Nicole's crisis forces them to confront the idea that emotional resilience does not mean immunity to suffering. Even those trained to heal others can be deeply wounded, especially when they deny themselves the same compassion they offer so freely. If someone within the Dupree family recognizes the thief, they see that Nicole's behavior is not simply stress, but a genuine psychological breaking point. It could mark a turning point, not just for her, but for the entire family dynamic. Cancer has already stripped the Duprees of their illusion of control. Donnie's BRCA positive result compounds that loss, introducing a future filled with difficult decisions and lingering fear. Nicole's breakdown adds yet another dimension, exposing the hidden cost of being the strong one in a family under siege. Her crisis is not an isolated event, but a symptom of a system pushed beyond its limits, a reminder that emotional labor, when unacknowledged, eventually demands its price. As the family stands together in the coming days, the question is not only how they will support Donnie through her diagnosis, but whether they will recognize that Nicole, too, is in need of care. Her struggle does not fit the narrative of who she is supposed to be, and that makes it easier to ignore. Yet, if her pain continues unseen, the consequences could be far-reaching, affecting not only her mental health, but her ability to function as the emotional cornerstone everyone expects her to be. In the end, Nicole Dupree's crisis underscores a harsh reality. Expertise does not equal invincibility. Even the most skilled psychiatrist cannot outthink grief, fear, and exhaustion when they converge all at once. The family's ability to survive this chapter may depend on whether they can extend their compassion beyond the most obvious wounds, and finally allow Nicole the space to be human, imperfect, and profoundly affected by the storm that has engulfed them all.